Hey, good evening. It's Tuesday, June 27th, and welcome back to Everyday Talk 24/7. We're now getting more into the meat of what I've been concerned about, the ministry of false prophets and how these things impact our families and folks who want to follow God in Christian communities. And we're going to focus on the evil of human traditions. And one of the ways this evil is shockingly and sadly portrayed is in the recent Amazon documentary, Shiny Happy People. And it's about the quote-unquote ministries of Bill Gothard and the Duggar family. Because it's Amazon, you can expect that there's a little bit or a lot of attempts and attacks on Christianity in general, a lot of good things. But let's not lose the significance of this documentary because of some of these things that they're doing that may not be necessarily overly fair to Christianity in general and Bible-believing folks in general. This documentary is valuable. And I'm going to work with some passages of Scripture which are familiar to you, but they show just how damning this particular documentary is. And I'm saddened that Amazon is the one that had to do the exposure of this thing. We as God's people need to be calling these things out. In Mark chapter 7, verses 5 through 7, the Pharisees are after Jesus' disciples. And they say this: the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders, instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" They're already creating their own laws, their own traditions, and blaming Jesus' disciples for not following their rules, man-made rules. So Jesus responds to them rather sharply. He replied, "Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. Hypocrites, when you take man-made rules and put them in the place of God's rules and God's commands, you become a hypocrite." So Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, and he's quoting from Isaiah 29, verse 13. "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules." And that's the thing that typifies Gothard and Duggar, the glorification of human rules. We'll be looking more intently at this. See, like the teaching of the Pharisees, the teachings of Gothard and the Duggars, they focus on performance and results. Worth, the worth of children, the worth of anyone in the movement, is determined by keeping the rules. It focuses on what benefits people, actually the leaders and those in charge, and not about the glory and honor of God. So you see things like focus on militia-type groups, hours of ministry, otherwise known as forced labor, attention to style and dress and appearance, over-attention, rigid adherence to human authority. There's no opportunity for appeal. There's no opportunity for reason. There's no opportunity for grace. You must have absolute obedience to the human authorities. And then the Bible then becomes reduced to fragments of verses to support this absolute adherence to human authority and saying, hey, following us is like following God. That's where the real evil becomes. And like Isaiah points out, there is no attempt to reach the heart, only the outward performance. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. That's the real evil that's happening here. You can earn your way to grace and favor with God by earning your way to grace and favor with these leaders. And whether it's Gothard's, Duggar, whatever it is, Any place that you're a part of, if that's the pattern, that's evil, and you've got to get out. So all of this leads us to Colossians chapter 2, verse 23. Such regulations, these human rules, they indeed have an appearance of wisdom with their self-imposed worship, their false humility, and their harsh treatment of the body. But they lack any value of restraining sensual indulgence. If you're going to typify what's going on in the Gothard camp and the Duggar camp, and the two are very tightly related, Duggar is following Gothard. If you were going to typify it, you would say it exactly this way that Paul says it in Colossians. There's the appearance of wisdom. It's very attractive. This looks really good. But it's a self-imposed, harsh worship and discipline. There's a false humility, and there's harsh treatment of the body. But you see, these things don't do anything about restraining sensual, sexual indulgence. So if the rules don't restrain the flesh, they're going to encourage it. There's no neutrality in Scripture. Okay, how can we know this? If we look at the short term, the rules may look very, very attractive. Oh, look at this. These people are obeying. These children are obeying. They're getting all this done. They look like they're really happy and content. Well, if we take individual snapshots or little short 2-minute videos, anything can appear attractive. What Jesus tells us to do is look to the long term. In Matthew 7, he says this, by your fruit you will recognize them, the false prophets. You'll recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? You have to let the fruit mature. That's what Jesus is telling us. Don't take the short video, just the snapshot. Look at the end result. And when we look at the end result of Gothard-type, Duggar-type ministries, it's not a very pretty picture. When you examine the fruit, what are you going to find? And this is what is at the heart of this Shiny Happy People documentary. And it's incredibly upsetting. Here's what you find. Pride in serving the particular marks of the group. Things like having lots of children. It's not wrong necessarily to have a lot of children. We had 5. But you become prideful. It's a mark of acceptance if you have a bunch of children. The Duggars, of course, went, I think, humanly, wrongly, fleshly insane with their 19. And they did it on display, not to honor God, but for display. You have lots of ideas of a false sense of, hey, we're really cool, happy, shiny people. But when you look below the surface, it was anything but that. And then you have the loss of the value of individuals for the good of the cause. You can't afford to stand out. You can't afford to be distinct. You can't afford to have something unique that's different from the group. You've got to serve the group. This results in broken families. There's an elevation and allegiance of human leaders. There's the subjugation and abuse of women and their daughters. And then sexual immorality and perversion comes forth, as is in the case of the Duggar family, with child pornography with one of the sons and abuse of his sisters, as in the case of Gothard being exposed to sexual perversion. And it's not just Gothard and Duggar. Any place that follows these particular formula of focusing on the outward and not the heart can produce this same garbage. And we're going to talk more about this in upcoming videos. But I want to just end tonight with this warning for these folks and for us to realize just how dangerous this is. There's a special place in hell for such people. Let's not mince words here. When you have this kind of track record, Matthew 18:6 applies. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. Those are Christ's words. You see these young children wanting to do the right thing and being molded into this perverse lifestyle of outward compliance that destroys the heart. That's the real danger here. That's what we've got to be on guard against. And again, it's not just these two very wretched individuals. There's more to it. And we're going to look more at the cause and the result in some upcoming videos. Please, I love your feedback and thoughts. We have Q&A Friday this week. If you have any questions about this, please send them in. This is serious material. We've got to protect our families, our young people, ourselves from this kind of evil. Thank you so much for watching, and Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching. May God richly bless you as you seek to live for His glory.